Well, this is just so exciting for me. I will try and contain my excitement. But I am so thrilled, honestly, to have you both here today. Thank you so much. And I just wanted, can you start off just by sharing maybe a little bit about yourselves, or really, how did you get to be here today? I don't mean your Uber, but you can tell us that if you wish. But how did you get to be here today? I'll start with you, Ismael.
Well, I grew up in the mountains of Puerto Rico, very small, poor, rural area. When I came out to this world, immediately I was told about my identity. You know, you are this and you should be that other thing. My grandma was a black Puerto Rican, and I came out from all the siblings, as mixed people do, kind of roll of the dice, let's see what they look like. And I was the one who looked the most like her, you know? It's like, and I was told, you're black, and we would have liked it not to be so, in so many words, you know? The media, there was nothing that looked like me. There was nothing that represented the also poor people of Puerto Rico. And I kind of started my journey just trying to find a voice, trying to find someone that looked like me. And when I saw that that wasn't the case, I essentially set my path to become a visible person, which led me to acting and led me to essentially this. I always say that this kind of thing that we do, it's a heist, you know, and we all have a role to play. Some people, you know, are in the front lines of that. Some people are the visible aspect of that. And rewiring that kind of social perspective was very important to me. Our ancestors had dreams. We are those wildest dreams, and I wanted to take it further because people are very comfortable seeing us in struggle. And I said, well, people need to start getting comfortable seeing us in heroism and elegance and in things that are actually in pride, which people seem to not to have a problem with when we want to go that way. So that led me to all that we're doing today, just existing so that other people can imagine themselves and also create a different.
Well, you mean you didn't just want to play the role of the slave?
No, I mean, that's been done, and we're very grateful for those strides. But now we gotta be a hero. We gotta be also just sitting in a couch eating some food. We gotta be just being seen normal and in comfort. You know, just like the depth of who we are as people.
As opposed to just the identity tag on top. So Sabrina, how about you? How did you get here today?
So I mean, they shared the bio. Like I started off as a stand-up, and then I transitioned from that to writing. But I definitely, as a kid, always wanted to act. I just didn't. I'm actually like not even from Brooklyn. I live there now, but I'm from Michigan. Okay. You're proud of that? Football, corn. We have that. Yeah, and then I didn't really necessarily think that I had a place on such a big screen, but I knew I wanted to be creative, so I just sort of picked up all these other skills to like keep that part of my like life and identity as a creative person alive. And then I guess by the time I was like at an agency, I sort of secretly believed that there's no way acting can be that hard. No offense. And then came along Joyride, where I guess there was the perfect, basically sexless neurodivergent role for someone as hot as me to audition for. And then I got that role, and I'm gay and Asian, and that's how I ended up at a DEI summit.
See, that's what I love. You see, when you are from an underrepresented group, you get your identity shoved down your face, and you also get some gigs. Okay, that's how it is, right? So we're doing both at the same time here. And so on that theme of identity, what was it like, Sabrina, being on set with an Asian director and cast? And by the way, those of you that have not seen Joyride, any of you who haven't seen it, okay, at some point you're going to see it, and you're going to go, oh my God, I didn't realize I was in the presence of someone so incredible. So it's a shame, those of you that haven't yet seen it, but just believe me, they are a god, right? So you're in the presence of two legends here. But anyway, tell me, what was it like for being on that set with an Asian director and cast? And was it different to being on a set where you're the only one?
Yeah, I joked about this with you a little bit as we were prepping.
We didn't do any prep. What are you talking about?
This is all coming from the heart, right? Like right on the spot. The spirit's moving me to say this. But yeah, I mean, I joked with you a little bit. Like one of the defining features of being on a set or a project with so many Asian people was that suddenly did become the focus. Like every single press question was like, and what is it like being an Asian actor? And you just have to be like, it's awesome. Or like, what's it like being an Asian actor with other Asian actors and a director? Like, it's awesome. At some point, I was like, I've been asked so many times what it's like being Asian. I've stopped saying it's awesome. And I've started saying it's mid. But I think one cool thing but I think that happens, when you're of any marginalized identity, like it doesn't matter if you're with a bunch of Asians or you're not, like you're going to be asked about these things. And there was this sense of solidarity that we had as a group. Like we would just sort of eye roll like, oh great, like here is this exec that doesn't get what we're trying to do. Here is this, it was so bizarre to be in an R-rated sex comedy and everybody being like, this is so important. I was like, yeah, I'm sure an R-rated sex comedy is really gonna bridge the political gap.
You want to go and see it, people. You want to go and see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, does that make sense? Like, and in some ways, it's hard for me to answer because I haven't really been on an all-white set. The only other project I was on was a very queer show, and if anything, it really illuminated for me what it was like being the only gender non-conforming person on the Joyride set, where I think what happens when you are on a project with people that are like you, and sometimes people will say this really poetic thing where they're like, I just don't have to explain myself. And I translate that to, you don't have to answer the stupidest questions you've ever heard in your life all the time. Like, love my Joyride cast, but being like the only non-conforming person. Like, there was a time where someone literally called me, like got mad at me, called me a bitch, and then immediately went, oh my God, I'm so sorry, bitch is a gendered term. What do you want me to call you? I was like, I don't have preferred slurs. Actually, if you're gonna hurt me, just go all the way. Like, that's just like an extreme example of like, and that can just feel like every day sometimes when you're the only person of a certain identity is like, I am not a spokesperson for every fleeting thought you have. Okay, all right.
Can we have a round of applause, please? Because I just love that. And Ismael, you had a similar experience when you were on the set of Miss Bala, where apparently, was that a 95% Latinx cast and crew? And what was that like for you, suddenly not being the only one?
Well, I just suddenly didn't have to explain myself.
They're funny. They're very funny.
No, I mean, I was gonna say, like, you're saying that this is because it's your first set and you haven't had an all-white set. I'm like, let's talk after your second movie.
I had an all-white life.
But that's the thing, you have like an all-white world, and then like the set is also kind of the same thing over and over again and again. Like we learn how to navigate this thing all the time, and it kind of becomes the norm, and you don't understand how much of a strain that is to consistently have to do these things that we call code switching, and also even like the way you walk and talk, and even the way that you ask for things. You have to kind of, a little bit of that servile attitude that people are expecting of you, because if you speak with assertiveness, which we see a lot of people speaking with a certain assertiveness that don't look like us, and that's boss, for us is like you're being angry or you're difficult to work with, and the list just goes on and on and on. And then suddenly you're in a cast that everybody's kind of like you in terms of a background, and you can just exist, you know. And that experience of existing, you don't realize how therapeutic it is in terms of you know, like when I would go to set on Lord of the Rings, the backlash was so tough.
Wait, can we just set the scene here?
Okay,
Because this really blew my mind when your amazing role where you play apparently the first, I mean, I don't want to say black elf, but actually and in fact you said it had to be a bulletproof elf because of all the hate that you got because you were playing an elf and you were black. And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought it's imaginary. Elves don't have a color, right? I mean, what on God's earth was going on? And what did you have to do in terms of being assertive to even get the cast, you know, the casting directors to consider you, because they had one idea in their minds, didn't they?
Yeah. I'm happy that we're together, because I'm going to cry and then you're going to lift this up again. Because this freaking thing like makes me so, makes me emotional, makes me frustrated. It's like, it was, you know, I wanted to be an elf when I was little. Like I saw the first Lord of the Rings movies and they were so magical.
Legolas.
It was, I mean, it was like something like you've never seen before. And I was from the mountains. So for me, I made that strange correlation that I was like the elves because they were from the mountains too. And they love nature and whatnot. And, you know, as soon as I expressed that for the first time, it was a laughable thing for everyone. You know, it's like that I wanted to be an elf. And for me, I don't know if it's the Aries thing or whatever the hell it is, but that just gave me a goal. Because I think.
So the more people said, don't be so ridiculous.
Yeah, because I think I find my drive in rejection. You know, I think like that rejection.
Well, that's lucky, isn't it?
I mean, if it wasn't that way, that's the only way for me, because there's so much rejection in this business, but also as we are as people. So, I mean.
So did they actually reject you?
I started this process when it first came out. I think some assistant did not notice that they put Lord of the Rings in the subject. We're not supposed to know. And I got this audition, and I was like, I can't believe that I actually will get to do this, to audition for this. But I knew that this was going to be an uphill battle from then on. I had an audition process that was maybe like 6-7 months, and thousands of people went for these roles. And in that process, I was rejected 3 different times. The first time that I was given like a no for an answer, I replied to my team's email, just literally, nope. I was like, boop, and just sent it back. I was like, I'm not going to take a no for an answer. The second time, I was staying in a tent in the desert in South Africa, like shooting a film. I put this together. There was like a sandstorm outside. I was like, you know, like I'm really going for this thing. I sent it over, and I got a second no, you know. And then the third time, when it came through, I was like, listen, I'll just go to the directors. I'll show up to their house. I'll if they see me, I was like, if they see me, like they're gonna know. It just needs to be like the vibe. They just need to feel my energy. I'm like the character, and they're like, chill. Like we don't need you to be creepy. Like we don't need you to get arrested for this thing. And then finally, I grieved the role, you know, when they came with the third no. And
you grieved it. So you went
it.
into mourning that you had lost that role.
I didn't lose it. They lost me. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm like. But that's the thing. Like, the opinions are that maybe that's like conceited or whatnot. But if I'm not my biggest cheerleader, I don't find that support widespread. You know, we're not people that have the most amount of fans in the rooms where the decision gets made. So like, I have to even fabricate this kind of like, you know, rising myself up and whatnot. But then I finally got it. And when I got it, that's when the actual uphill battle started. They hadn't even told anyone that I was going to be an elf. When they put that headshot out there, the world poured itself on what the hell. He doesn't look like anything that's in this world of Tolkien.
This world of elves.
They're like, if he's not an orc, what is he doing there? Like so on and so forth. To me and my other two, like it was It was,
And didn't you get death threats and stuff?
oh yeah, let it be, God, please, not an elf. I was like, y'all up for a surprise, when that actually comes through. Death threats. My bank account was tried to get hacked like 3 different times. My phone was leaked.
All just because you are a man of color who's been
because-
cast as an elf, and people have got an idea in their heads.
It's like there's no.
It's just obviously he's an orc.
And that's the whole freaking point. Surprise. No, but he is an orc. No, but to come face to face. I mean, you again, your entire life we're like dealing with this freaking nonsense, but to go through it at that scale. I said in an interview that it didn't land well. They're like, so what's been your takeaway from this experience? With so much backlash and whatnot. I said, listen, I just didn't know that you could say the N-word in so many languages, and it didn't land, and that got cut from the interview. But it was true. I was sipping my tea, just scrolling from comment to comment to comment. People just telling you that they don't want you to exist in any way, shape, or form. That you've ruined their childhood and all this nonsense. And I was just like, and I would refresh like my bank account once in a while and just be like, I'm good, Sorry about it.
But it's amazing, isn't it, that extra layer. So I want to come back, actually, on the Bulletproof Elf. But Sabrina, I want to ask you first, like this element of exhaustion, we have heard the word a little bit here today, as well as backlash, I have to say. But like with the exhaustion thing, like just getting tired of just having to have your identity be the main thing that people take away. Like what is your experience being when you're doing, like these press tours or anything else? Do you get exhausted or are you good with it?
Yeah, I'm tired. I definitely it's really frustrating. It just, and I feel multiple things. Like, I think it depends on where it's coming from. I feel very touched when young queer Asian people come up to me and feel very seen. But it is sometimes hard to get this feedback because it was very sudden for me. I was mostly just doing stand-up and writing. They're all pretty private. Stand-up is public, but it was just within the scene of New York where for a while people would just be like, you were so funny. And I think since this movie came out, it's been a lot more thank you for being Asian. And you're like, I thought I was being funny. And there's this weird dissonance, to what you were talking about, to get the role of Deadeye, it was also not easy for me. And
Can you say a tiny bit about Deadeye, the character that you...
Yeah, Deadeye is the 4th member of this ensemble comedy film, and they were definitely originally written to be this oddball joke machine, and they're weird, and it was really the Lionsgate had a very hard time finding someone to play the role. I mean, that's how you end up with a no-name stand-up the audition. And I remember the directors and the writers, they were all so excited about me, but I also had to go through 7 rounds of auditions. I was the last person to get a contract. In fact, a week before shooting, we did a table read where I am literally live with the other cast members that were cast, and I still had not had a contract because even though the team was you are the best part for the role, we think we might just cut the role altogether, actually. I think just to speak to, and it's one data point, so you can't make that many, but my personal feeling was look, there are a bunch of Asian creatives that could totally saw my potential, and I think for a lot of the white execs that were in charge, it was this doesn't make a ton of financial sense. It's just too many leaps. And it's not that many leaps. There are a lot of, we've seen Alan from The Hangover, Melissa McCarthy, but I just think taking that risk on me, it was just harder to make that justification, and the Asian creatives really, really fought for me. I think it was just I don't know. But yeah, just the feeling of wow, is my identity always gonna, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But what I was gonna say was that's why I get so annoyed when people are it's so great that you're up there, you're a sign that like being non-binary and being Asian is on the rise. And I was like, I didn't like get here because like necessarily like Asian people like me. Like I kind of got here because I got the white people to like me and the like cis people to, you know, finally buy in, and with the help of like other people in my community. But yeah, I feel very, very tired because, you know, I'm way too talented to be reduced to just being Asian and
Speak
gay.
on it, like speak on it. That's true.
Yeah.
And it's that thing,
true.
isn't it, about everyone will just say, oh, you're so amazing. And then you dig a bit deeper and it's like, why are you so amazing? Oh, because of things you were born with and you have nothing to do with whatsoever. And I remember like the first time when there was like a big, I was trying to become a politician, and this wonderful guy who was a black member of parliament, he got up, I told you this in our secret prep that never happened. He got up and he said, you must vote for Una. There are 3 reasons you must vote for Una. 1, she is black. 2, she is a woman. 3, she is young. And I was like, could there be a 4th bit that maybe I have anything intelligent to say? And people can't. They just can't often get beyond that. But the other thing you said is that you had people in the room to fight for you. And that, in my experience, is one of the most critical pieces. Because if you don't have that experience, and that's why I want everyone here, please remember, you can lend your privilege. You can say, I know you think this person is a risk because they're from an underrepresented group, but all that really means is that these groups haven't had those opportunities, and like, let's actually focus on the talent. But I wanted to come back, Ismael, to what you had said, which really struck me so much. You were talking about, so you go through this unbelievable uphill battle to get cast in this kind of, defining role. And then you were talking about just this, you arrive on set, you're often getting to set at 3:00 in the morning, and just what you have to go through. I think this point about being in a majority group, and I am in a majority group for lots of different things where I just take things for granted. I think a lot of majority groups just take for granted that they don't have to do all the identity shit just before you even turn up to do your work. So can you speak a bit about what was that like, and what did you feel you were having to juggle before you show up on set?
Yeah, I mean, it's first you feel the weight of the world that it's already placed on you all the time about being a monolithic kind of, representing this monolithic experience of being a person of color, and everything that you say represents the billions of people that, it's like, so you're already like feeling that, and like the ancestral thing, and like the tower on top of you on your shoulders or whatever. And then, which is, hey, beautiful, and it does drive you, and I feel extremely proud of that. But at the same time, I'm exhausted of existing through that by the time that I already got the role. 7-8 months trying to, do the whole thing so that people can realize what you already know, which is you are talented and you have so much more, and you developed your life and you developed your craft and your intellect and so on and so forth. Then you're dealing with, like, I wake up to, again, hey, your bank account tried to be hacked, or hey, like, all the hatred, you ruined my childhood, this and that, blah, blah, blah. With a wave of love, of course, because it comes
together,
but one triggers you to no end. Seeing those words, I'm only a human, it just triggers the little kid, triggers the high school kid.
And it's harder for you to do your best work.
Absolutely, because I'm exhausted and I'm sad, and now I need to be like what you said, that I told you, like a bulletproof elf. I have to be the elfiest elf that ever elfed. Like, suddenly I have to do, and I knew that was gonna be the case. So I don't know if you've seen the show, but I have kind of like a lot of action in the show, and I insisted that I did all my stunts, and about 95% of them is like on screen, it's me. So I learned all of my skills. I do all my aerials, all of the choreo, absolutely everything. And I was in that gym from 7 a.m. till maybe 8 p.m., 7 p.m. I will take my naps there. I would eat there, and because I knew what I had to put forward, and I knew that people, which they did, were like arguing even if the diameter of my nostrils was like too much to play the freaking role. So I knew that I had to like create a thing that was so solid that nobody could mess with my performance, which is unfair. But that's exactly what I did. And that by the time that would arrive on set, having to be MLK, and then having to be Gandhi at some point, because you also have to be very nice about it. And I even have to ask for my coffee. Can I please have a coffee? By the time that I arrive on set, I'm no longer an actor or an artist or a person even. I'm like a whisper of something that just gets to set. And from there, I have to create a role. And a lot of your cast members, and I'm sure that happens in every institution, by the time you get to work, you are just trying to survive. And I always wonder, how much further could we go if we had at least not one of these hoops? I've achieved all of this with that amount of setback. How much further would I be? You know what I mean?
I mean, there are some lines that will stay with you, and I think the elfiest elf that ever elfed, is going to stay with me. But I just wondered, this point of what you've actually described as this thing called stereotype threat. There's a whole world of literature and academic research on how when you are representing an underrepresented identity group, you lose about at least 5% of your cognitive ability. Instead of it being in the task at hand, the artistry, the acting, whatever it might be, you're actually thinking about what if I let this group down? What if I, oh my God. And they did this amazing research which involved chess players where they could actually measure the impact of that cognitive dissonance. And they did it really cleverly or sneakily by telling the women chess players that they were playing men. They weren't, they were playing computer. But they were able to measure the actual amount of cognitive dissonance. And it was usually about 5%, but could be more. 5%, a 5% difference in achievement or in performance, that's the difference if you think about it in a test or in a career. Yeah. That's the difference between who gets promoted and who doesn't get promoted. Who's seen as coming across as a leader and who's seen, they had their minds somewhere else, So that stereotype threat. Sabrina, I just wondered, does that resonate with you at all? Or are we we could all just be moaning, there is that, I will say, but I have felt it as well, especially when I used to stand up in Parliament, and literally all I could see was white men. They became some of my dearest friends, and I love the fact, sorry, this sounds semi-racist, but I did love the fact that they would say, "Oh, Une, you're so eloquent." And I would be like, "Oh, great, you mean I can walk and talk at the same time? Now, will you vote for my legislation?" And, that you got to use it as well. But how does that whole stereotype threat thing resonate with you?
Yeah, it totally affects me a lot, especially I think in the stand-up realm. I think acting sometimes is a little bit, in fact, it's almost sometimes easier because I am so limited no one's ever like, oh, a white person could have played Deadeye. But I think with stand-up, there's so many lists and showcases that sentiment comes up a lot of this list, clearly they just cared a lot about diversity and completely reduces, what it took for me to get there. And whenever I do showcases, I feel this intense pressure that if I don't absolutely, if I'm not a clear standout, there is going to be some sort of weird narrative that I got this for diversity reasons.
Not just that, it's A, that might be why you're there unfairly, people will say. But B, if you screw it up, there's no room for the next one, only one at a time. Do you know what I mean? And the hopes of the community kind of get put on your shoulders.
Totally. And I even have sick thoughts I'll be the first one that's actually good. You just start to it just totally destroys. All right, well, it's being recorded, so it's that's what I said. And I know it's wrong.
So, okay, let me ask you both. We're sadly coming to the end of our time here, but Sabrina, I saw an interview you'd given where you said you actually had sometimes maybe, or maybe just when giving this interview for 1 minute, because you wanted the journalist to leave, I don't know, but you said you could have some empathy for the trolls, the racist, homophobic, and otherwise trolls on the internet. That is kind of asking a lot. That was a bit of your MLK moment, was it? Like, just like speak a bit about that. I would love to understand more.
Yeah, I deeply regretted saying that. I would never want anyone who is of a marginalized identity to think that they need to do like more emotional work. But if anything, I was just sort of saying, I was trying to convey that, you know, I'm somebody who probably like many people of color, like has received a lot of feedback and can, you know, like is a little bit sensitive to criticism and rejection. And I think being online and social media, there's a lot of, it's not people who are courageously like, it's not the people you meet in real life who are giving you real feedback. It's just, you know, you start to, I was just realizing that all of this was coming from a very different place, you know, and you can tell because sometimes you go on the Instagram pages of the people who hate you. And sometimes it's a dad who's singing to his ukulele on Reels with no views. And he's saying things like, hey guys, and it's just like, what guys?
7 views.
You're just like, oh, this is like a really lonely, suffering person who's like having a very, and it is sometimes like older men, like you're just like, this is somebody who feels so disenfranchised and feels so like frustrated by like any level of success from someone that they view as unworthy, or, you know, at least someone that should not have gotten through the door before them. And so
so basically you were also saying, I loved what you said, which is that actually you feel, you know, it's less about you, their comments, and more a reflection on them.
No.
totally. Where did you get that sentence?
I got that from you in the prep session we never had. Yeah. So listen.
Do you mind?
Yeah.
Like, just go over that as well, because I think we are asked a lot of to be empathetic and to behave in a certain way. Even here, I find myself being frustrated a little bit and being serious and getting in my head, oh, how are these people going to perceive me? But I think there has to be a space for people to actually receive our our anger and our frustration, and for it to be safe and for it to be witnessed. Because again, I wanted to say, it's not like my set was like the most toxic place, or that the people, the executives, like I'm not reflecting on any of that. Is that these dynamics are actually quite invisible, and people don't know that they're, like, people that don't deal with them don't know that they're existing. And I think the allyship aspect of it, people need to actually ask the question and stay for the answer. and reflect on that answer, so that we're not going through these things like by ourselves. You feel me?
Well,
like
exactly.
The whole empathy situation.
Exactly on that point, we're gonna steal like a minute or so, just to end here on that point about allyship. Because can you just both of you maybe just say a little bit about what you feel a good ally is or does? Just, any final thoughts? Yeah. You had spoken about lending privilege.
Yeah. I think within our circles, I think we're also consistently asked to define ourselves based on our struggles. This is what I went through, this is what I go through, this is the aspects that I'm being discriminated against. And often we actually forget, even as marginalized people, to check in with our own privileges. And I find myself in these circles wanting and having to do that. I'm more educated now to do that, and checking in that in these spaces, for example, I identify as a Black Latino man, but I am light-skinned. And I am a cisgender man. So I have those set of privileges that in a certain room, I know that I can lend to fellow cast members. For example, they don't identify as, they're not cisgender, they're not male, they are darker skinned, and lending that privilege in terms of allyship, even in private, because some people do have job security, real fears. Hearing that, digesting that, and then when it matters, speaking up in a way that affects them and that trickles down to them, that lending of privilege, I think allyship should be just check in with what you got and how you can use it.
I love that. And yeah, that does deserve a round of applause, but you're not going to get it now. You get it in a second. Sabrina, last word to you.
I mean, I would just second that, like, have some humility and integrity, and like, don't be afraid to be the corny person that, asks if if, we can have pronouns on things. Like, it really did mean a lot to me when, my cast member, Sherry Cola, did that for me because, I was new and I was really tired and scared and I'd never been on a set, and it just helps to have somebody, like when you see like sort of systemic inequality, to not always put it on this other person to have to advocate for it. They're like the least well positioned to do it, and like just be corny for 5 minutes. It's like not that. Am I hurting the cause?
I literally love what you say. We're going to end actually on this really important note, I believe, which I know some people watching this will think that pronouns is a really confusing argument about grammar that they don't understand, but actually it's about inclusion and human rights. And I think you just articulated that beautifully. And for the people that it doesn't cost a lot to do, wow, maybe just do it, So on that note, could you give a huge round of applause? Thank you.